When Barron Trump became the butt of a joke, Melania Trump's actions sparked a significant cultural debate. The evening seemed like a typical one in the world of late-night television. The audience at the Burbank, California, studio laughed as a comedian known for his acerbic, politically charged humor made jokes at the expense of public figures. However, in an unexpected moment, the comedian turned his attention to Barron Trump, the former president's youngest son. The joke was quick, dark, and clearly aimed at the teenager. The audience's reaction was mixed, with some laughing hesitantly and others shifting uncomfortably in their seats. The joke wasn't just a harmless prank. It was a blow that cut deep, affecting a young man who had been largely kept out of the spotlight. Within hours, the clip went viral. Social media exploded with hashtags like #BarronTrump, which quickly trended on Twitter and Instagram. Memes and reactions flooded timelines as Trump supporters and critics alike voiced their opinions. Some condemned the joke as unnecessary and tasteless, while others defended it as a simple joke. The media quickly picked up on the story, analyzing every angle and debating the limits of humor. At her Palm Beach residence, Melania Trump watched the clip with concern. Her son has always been her priority, and she has worked tirelessly to shield him from the chaos of public life. The joke was not only an attack on Barron, but also on her as a mother. Melania knew she could not let this go unpunished. Her actions as a mother came into play, and she began preparing a statement to address the situation. However, words alone would not be enough. As the controversy grew, Melania made a decision that would rock the media. She decided to take legal action. What she didn't know was that this decision would trigger a much bigger battle than she could have imagined. The next day, Melania Trump's team issued a statement to the press. It was measured but firm, condemning the comedian's comments as inappropriate and hurtful. While her words resonated with her supporters, they were not enough to quell the growing controversy. Melania was determined. For years, she had faced criticism and ridicule as a public figure. But this attack on her son was personal, and she was ready to fight back. Melania has become one of the most prominent anti-defamation advocates in the country, known for her outspoken approach and high-profile victories. She filed a lawsuit against the comedian and the television network, alleging defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The lawsuit painted a clear picture. The comment, though disguised as humor, had crossed a line. It was no longer about free speech, but about protecting a child's right to privacy and dignity. The lawsuit itself became a media event. News commentators debated whether Melania's case had merit or was merely a strategic ploy to regain relevance. Supporters applauded her courage, calling her a fierce mother defending her son, while critics accused her of using the lawsuit as a publicity stunt. Barron, meanwhile, remained out of the spotlight. Close family friends described him as a reserved teenager who rarely engaged with the media. Melania's actions, however, spoke volumes about her priorities. She wasn't fighting for her reputation. She was fighting for his. The process had an immediate impact. Supporters began to distance themselves from afternoon and evening programs, worried about the negative repercussions. The comedian, known for his confidence, appeared more subdued in the following performances. However, he refused to apologize, defending his freedom of expression and labeling the process an act of comedy. But as the days went by, the story grew even bigger, attracting voices from across the country, and the battle was just beginning. The lawsuit set off a firestorm across all media platforms. News channels devoted hours to panel discussions, internet forums buzzed with discussion, and podcasts analyzed the situation from every angle. The country seemed divided down the middle. On one side, there were those who applauded Melania for standing up against what they called a despicable act of comedy. Parents, in particular, resonated with her decision, flooding social media with messages of support. "Protecting our children should never be a question," wrote one viral post, accompanied by a photo of Barron during his father's term. On the other hand, the pushback was fierce. Comedians and talk show hosts rallied to their colleagues' defense, arguing that the lawsuit set a dangerous precedent for creative expression. Some argued that public figures, including their families, were fair game for satire, regardless of their age. "If you can't take a joke, you shouldn't be in the public eye," one famous talk show host declared during a heated debate on his show. The conversation spread beyond the media to coffee shops, workplaces, and dinner tables. In Los Angeles, high school students debated the ethics of free speech during a campus debate. At a small restaurant in Topeka, Kansas, a group of retirees debated whether the comedian had gone too far. The story was no longer just about Melania and Barron. It was about the kind of behavior society was willing to tolerate in the name of entertainment. Amid the chaos, the comedian continued to defend himself. His monologues became more defiant, positioning himself as a victim of censorship. His supporters defended him, but his critics said his jokes had taken on a darker, almost sad tone. The once charismatic figure now seemed weighed down by the controversy unfolding around him. Networks felt the pressure, too. The comedian's show's ratings began to decline, and rumors swirled that executives were reconsidering their endorsement. Meanwhile, Melania's legal team worked quickly, presenting more evidence and testimony to bolster their case. The legal battle was no longer just a personal struggle. It was turning into a cultural one. But no one could have foreseen the bombshell that was about to explode, threatening to change the course of the proceedings completely. As the trial began in Los Angeles Superior Court, it became the kind of spectacle the media could not ignore. Paparazzi lined the courthouse steps, capturing images of Melania Trump arriving in finery, accompanied by her legal team. On the other side, the comedian walked in with his executives, his face set in a determined expression. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation. This was not just a trial. It was a referendum on modern entertainment. The prosecution opened with a compelling argument, highlighting the fine line between comedy and cruelty. They played the clip of the offensive joke for the court, the audio echoing in the hushed room. Melania's lawyer described how the joke and the comment had deeply affected her son, painting a picture of a bewildered teenager at the center of media sensationalism. "This is not about free speech," the lawyer said, his voice booming. "This is about a child's right to grow up without being ridiculed for fun." The defense, however, took a different approach. They held firm to the First Amendment, arguing that comedy, no matter how offensive, deserved protection. The comedian's legal team presented decades of precedent to support their case, portraying him as an artist who pushed the boundaries. At one point, the comedian himself took the stand, offering impassioned testimony about his career and how the lawsuit threatened to stifle creativity. The courtroom became a theater of clashing ideologies, with each side presenting witnesses to bolster their arguments. Former Barron teachers testified about his reserved demeanor and how media scrutiny affected his school life. But the defense brought comedians who passionately argued that satire was a crucial part of social commentary. Public interest in the case reached a fever pitch. Every detail, from Melania's impassioned reactions to supporters' angry retorts, was analyzed and debated across every platform. Late-night and evening shows across the country avoided jokes about the trial, worried about inadvertently becoming the next target of public scrutiny. But after the trial settled into a predictable rhythm, new testimony emerged that transformed the case and public perception. On what seemed like a routine day, the atmosphere changed dramatically when the prosecution announced a surprise testimony. The defense team exchanged uncomfortable glances as a former network employee who had supported the afternoon and evening show entered the room. His name was William Carter, a former production assistant who had worked on the show for more than 5 years before being fired under controversial circumstances. Carter's hair was disheveled, but he looked resolute, as if he were on a mission. As he began to speak, the tension in the room was palpable. He testified about the culture behind the scenes at the show, describing an environment where pushing boundaries took precedence over ethics. But it wasn't his general observations that shook the room. It was the specific evidence he brought. From his briefcase, Carter produced emails, memos, and internal communications that revealed something far more damaging than anyone expected. According to Carter, the Barron Trump joke was not an offhand remark. It had been planned, debated, and ultimately approved by top network executives. At least some of the correspondents suggested that the joke was intended not for humor, but to stir up controversy and boost ratings. Reactions rippled through the room as the documents were displayed on the screen. In one particularly damaging email, one executive wrote, "This will get people talking. The controversy will spread." For the first time, the focus of the trial shifted from the network to the corporate machinery that had triggered the incident. The defense fought to recover, insisting that the network had acted independently and that editorial decisions were irrelevant to the case. But the damage was done. Carter's testimony had planted a seed of doubt, not just about the joke, but also about the motives behind it. Outside the courtroom, the revelation sent shockwaves through the media industry. Headlines screamed about the toxic culture inside the network, and several of its executives were placed on administrative leave, pending an internal investigation. The comedian, once the face of edgy comedy, now found himself isolated, with his own colleagues reluctant to support him. Even if the tide had turned in Melania's favor, the case was far from over, and the final verdict would have consequences no one could have foreseen. By the time the trial was over, the courtroom was packed. Journalists filled the gallery, their pens poised to capture every detail. Outside, crowds gathered, divided between Melania Trump supporters and those defending the comedian. The stakes were higher than ever, with public opinion turning against the comedian in the wake of William Carter's revelations. In her closing arguments, Melania's lawyer delivered a powerful speech. She argued not just for her client, but for all the families who had been dragged into the public eye without their consent. "This is not about silencing comedy," she said, her voice firm and resolute. "This is about accountability. It's about understanding that our words, especially those amplified to millions, have consequences." The defense, determined, made one final plea. They warned that a ruling against the comedian could create a ripple effect for all comedians. "Where do we draw the line?" they asked. "At what point does protecting feelings infringe on the freedom to challenge and provoke?" After hours of deliberation, the judge returned with his verdict. The comedian was found guilty of defamation, and the network was ordered to pay substantial damages for its role in fostering a culture of sensationalism. The judge, however, clarified that the verdict was not an attack on free speech, but an acknowledgement that humor cannot come at the expense of a child's dignity. The verdict sent shockwaves through the media world. For Melania, it was a bittersweet victory. She had stood up for her son and won, but the experience had been exhausting. In a brief statement to the press, she expressed her hope that the case would serve as a reminder to approach public discourse with more care and respect. For the comedian, the loss was severe. His supporters drifted away, his network distanced itself, and his show was put on indefinite hiatus. But the case also sparked important conversations. Across the country, people debated the limits of comedy, the responsibilities of public figures, and the ethics of media sensationalism. In the weeks that followed, new initiatives emerged to address the toxic culture of entertainment. Comedians began to reevaluate their material, networks implemented tighter controls, and supporters became more cautious about what they chose to support. And through it all, one lesson became clear. While freedom of expression is a right, respect and empathy are responsibilities we all share. As the dust began to settle, the country pondered the deeper implications of the case. Conversations shifted from the specifics of the case to the broader cultural issues it raised. Where is the line between humor and harm? How do we balance the right to free speech with the need for accountability? For many parents, Melania's battle was a call to action. It reminded them of the importance of standing up for their children in an increasingly digital and unforgiving world. One Des Moines mother shared her thoughts in a viral video. "If someone with Melania Trump's platform can take on this fight, what does that mean for the rest of us?" This case wasn't just about Barron. It was about all of our children. For the entertainment industry, the verdict was a wake-up call. Networks and production companies began to reevaluate their approach to comedy, understanding that cheap jokes and controversial content came at a cost. The case inspired a renewed focus on creating humor that challenges norms without dignifying individuals. On the streets, in homes, and in classrooms, people began to discuss the effects of their words and actions. The case highlighted how something as simple as a joke could become a larger conversation about values, ethics, and respect. But the story's impact went beyond Barron, Melania, or the comedian. It became a cultural touchstone, teaching us that while we have the freedom to speak, we must also consider the power of our words. Humor can unite, but it can also divide, and the responsibility to choose wisely falls on all of us. And so, as the cameras dimmed and the world moved on, one message remained. Compassion must always come first. The case may be over, but the lessons it left behind are more relevant than ever. It's our responsibility to make sure our words build bridges, not walls, and that we challenge others with respect, not cruelty. Let's keep these conversations going, fighting for a world where we can laugh, disagree, and grow without tearing each other down. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more stories that challenge the way we see the world.